All right. Hi. So I want to quickly go over this paper that we read in class. We, the paper, we, our general consensus was it really did not have a lot of substance. So what do you do when you get a paper like this? First, how do you make the call to say it's not uh, really useful for your purposes? You can't base your evidence on the paper. And so one of the things about the paper is the authors reported that it's a cross-sectional study. And a cross-sectional study, you are taking a small population, a sample, a study sample from a larger population, and we kind of concluded that first off, we don't even know the population from which the select 100 videos that the authors analyzed, where, you know, how large is the population from which 100 was taking? Was it 100 out of 1,000? Or was it 100 out of a million? We don't know. So it's hard to establish incidence. And so, of course, there's some strengths and weaknesses to cross-sectional studies. They're relatively quick and inexpensive to do. You don't have ethical difficulties to do them. But one thing is you're collecting all this data on just one time point. Okay. So the real value of these kinds of studies is they're very helpful for generating hypotheses and to justify further in-depth research studies. But unfortunately, the authors did not do any of that in-depth analysis, and so we concluded that it doesn't have as much material. There are other weaknesses to this cross-sectional studies. You really can't measure incidence. Again, is it 100 out of 1,000, 100 out of a million? We don't know. Um, Also, for that reason, you can't make causal inferences, and it's difficult to interpret associations. As a matter of fact, in this particular study, they did not make any association. Okay. Now, to further make that call about whether or not you should use a source, is the reporting of the paper, does it conform with the standards of that type of research? So the author stated that it's a cross-sectional study. So for a cross-sectional study, you should give clear eligibility criteria. And in this case, again, that wasn't really stated. All they stated is TikTok videos that had several, maybe millions of views. And now, as we think about it, what does a view mean? Is it like views by who, for how long? Is it just if I scroll through it on my TikTok account? Does that count as a view, or is it that I viewed it and really interacted with it? So we don't know. So it makes it difficult to make a call based on the participants of the study. So in the paper as well, they talked about a single reviewer coded the content of the entire sample to come up with a list of 19 themes. So for a qualitative study, that part of the study that is qualitative, of course, they need to describe what it means. How was it coded? How was it? What research paradigm or what methodology or what methods were used? And so this here is a screen grab of standards for reporting qualitative research by medical professionals. So I'm saying that, oh, if I'm a medical professional and somebody wants to report a qualitative research study to me, these are some of the things that you should include. And none of these was actually included in this paper. So they did not talk about their approach, whether it's or their methodology, whether it's ethnography, grounded theory, phenomenology, or whatever. And neither did they say how they interpreted. Was it post-positivist, constructivist, or interpretivist? So that wasn't stated for that part. Now, you should also talk about the researcher's characteristics. Who are they? Because who you are, your position influences your biases, how you'd see issues. So they did not say that as well. Um, they did not give any additional contextual information. So again, that qualitative part, again, there's a lot of flaws in how that was done. So yes, it's not worth your time. You can't really rely on the evidence here. But yes, we've critiqued it. But are there any improvements? Can you still salvage anything? Um, so yeah, again, this is further critique. They talked about the table one, the results talked about shares, likes, comments. Is there any hierarchy to this? They need to describe that. So, what could I do? Well, I could cite other sources to define those parameters very, very clearly. So, this here is from a different paper, again by a surgeon. It's in the Journal of Surgery to talk about how they would define each of these things. So once you define your variables, it's easier for your audience to follow. So this is one improvement I would say, that the authors should clearly define what variables they're measuring. So they're talking about views, so number of times a video is viewed. Even though it seems like intuitive, they still need to define that. Okay. And even if it is viewed, how, viewed in what period? Over a year, over 10 years, where all the videos, like, were they all posted at the same time? So a video that was posted 10 years ago would certainly have more views, even though those views may have changed today. So these are things that have to be defined. And you could even go further to like sentiment analysis. So, what was this positive, was it negative, or neutral sentiment? Just by stating in that paper that, oh, the paper mentioned something about using Ozempic, or the paper mentioned something about, medicine shortage in those social media posts, is in itself uninformative, because is it stated in a positive light or a negative light? That was not um, done. So again, talking about cross-sectional surveys or studies being good for generating leads for further research. These are some of the types of research that the persons should have done. Okay, but again, going further, I want to now pivot and deep dive into something else. So even though the paper wasn't useful, at least I can still use some of the claims they made to lead me into things that interest me. So this is a quote from the paper. They said that Wegovy um, has a stronger dose of semaglutide with a potential for more side effects. And so okay, so stronger dose, what does that mean? What does stronger dose mean? So I went back and researched it. So Wegovy is a larger dose is 2.4 milligrams weekly. Ozempic is typically 1 milligram weekly. Again, they're used for different things. So the Ozempic is used for off-label use for weight loss, and so I wanted to deep dive more into adverse effects, and also one question that fascinates me is who will benefit? Is it the people that are really obese, or the people that are just overweight and things like that? And so, again, because one of the critiques of this paper is that um, also the source where it is published is not quite reputable. The impact factor is really low for that journal. And so I'm like, okay, I think I should pick higher impact journals where they're reputable sources. After all, I'm in the biomedical sciences. I want to pick papers that are respected by other people in the biomedical sciences. So I picked Nature Medicine, and the impact factor for that is 50. That's really high. And I picked this paper as well from New England Journal of Medicine. And so one of the things when you're looking at clinical information is you usually want to use double-blind, multi-center type trials that are done in a in a way that is less open to bias. So the weight of evidence is a lot higher. So this is one paper that looked at the long-term effects of semaglutide in adults who are overweight or obese. And this one, it's called the Step 5 trial. One very common thing when you read those big clinical trials, they always have like fancy names like this STEP trial, the SUSTAIN trial, and so on and so forth, such that they're catchy. So this is from the STEP trial. And so let's look at some of the results from that paper. So again, looking at the class of obesity, so there are different classes. If you're just overweight is in green, that's usually you have BMI 25 to 30 kilograms per meter squared. If you're class 1 is 30 to 35, class 2 35 to 40, and class 3 is really, really obese, greater than 40. And so I looked at the data in that paper, and I added this ones in yellow here, and what you see here is this, that the people that have the largest the proportion of patients that have the largest improvement in symptoms are actually those who are overweight. So it's 29% here, and it grows to after semaglutide for 104 weeks. That's a little less than 2 years. Okay, it's for 2 years. Is that's like a 15 percent change. That's large. As well, those who are class 1 obese, they also, that's 13.2% um, change. But notice the changes are, so this is 42%, that's 28%. This is 29%, that's 44%. So the real largest group of change is still this overweight group. And if you compare that to those who are class 3 obese, their relative change is about 4.8. And again, that tells you that the biggest bang for your buck really happens um, in terms of weight gain here. And so for those who are here, who are class 3 obese, there's still benefits in weight gain. So that's 9.8 to 4.5% proportion of the patient. But the real gain here is their cardiovascular events as well as in diabetes. Okay. Um, Also, so that's again, this becomes something I might want to follow on um, further. So instead of, I'll pick this paper and read this paper in more detail. Another thing is another paper from Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, impact factor 13.8, which is still high, which is still very good. It's really reputable. And again, I'm looking at the effect of different weight classes. If you take on semaglutide, this study is a shorter period. But one of the things they found, which I think is interesting, is that for those who are patients who are class 3 obese, again, those are BMI greater than 40, they had similar weight loss, that is absolute weight loss, compared to those who are class 1 and class 2. They did not compare with the ones who are overweight, but class 1 and class 2. So 7.1 uh, average weight loss versus 6.3. Um, Again, there's no statistical difference, p-value 0.27, but the mean weight loss is um, 5.3 in those who are 5.3% in those who are class 1, class 3, versus 6.5% in those who are class 1 or class 2. So again, this tells me, and this is statistically significant, p is equal to 0.03, that it conforms to what we saw in the previous figure from the paper in Nature Medicine. And this tells me that the greatest relative improvement in weight is really those is it is much less in those who are really obese. Okay. And so as a patient, I want to ask myself what obesity ranges, what BMI ranges am I in? Am I likely to see what others have reported? And I also learned from this paper that um, so again, this is in 3 weeks. This is in 3 months. And those who have been followed for much longer, you do have sustained changes in weight loss.